And yeah, and then the site plan is just really showing that we're not affecting the parking at all. We're building in the green space there at the front of the restaurant.
Okay. Can we go to another exhibit, Tom?
Yes.
So I know that Derek Gregor is, I believe he's on with us.
No, I don't think he is. He does not typically join the commission.
Okay.
But you can address the comments as you go.
Right.
Can everyone see his memo?
Yes.
Okay. So we did receive comment from Mr. Gregor, and we've already had discussions between, well, I've had communications with Mr. Gregor, and I've had discussions with Mr. Gillespie. But I'd like Thomas to talk about the various comments that have been raised and how we're going to address them. Thomas, could you do that?
Sure. Yeah, so I'll address comments number 1, 4, 5, and 6. Starting with number 1, I spoke with the town engineer, Derek, and he would accept our drawings if we scaled them up to a 1 to 20 scale. Currently, they're at 1 to 30 scale. He did not have an issue with that. We're planning to address this, we didn't have the time to address it prior to the meeting and reissue everything, so we'd like to do that, hope to do that afterwards. Number 4, just a paver detail, which we can provide as like in a construction detail. Number 5, you're concerned about the landscaping interfering in the state right-of-way. We will clearly show that. We are not crossing the property line, so that should not be an issue. And number 6, we'll change our title block to represent 1301 Silas Deane Highway.
So as to comments 2 and 3, we are in the process of trying to retain an engineer, civil engineer, to help us with these items. This memo was issued, we received it on the afternoon of August 30th, and we just really haven't had the ability to retain that person yet. So we believe that's going to be doable. In the communications with Mr. Gregor, and I'll read the email, and I know Peter was copied on it. This is from Mr. Gregor. Joe, Peter indicated that you asked if comments from my August 30th 21 memo can be addressed after planning and zoning approval. If you're agreeable to incorporating them, I feel we can work out the details after approval since they are relatively minor. So in discussions with Peter, we're fine with that. We'd like to just get this project moving along. And it sounds like your town officials are going to be very reasonable in working this out. So we would consent to those types of conditions or of approval. I mean, so far everyone's been working quite well together on this, and I see no reason why that's going to change. Thomas and Mr. Wicko are on it, and I don't think that's going to change. I can tell you that as to the character of the neighborhood, can you see the photograph?
No,
We can
see it.
Right?
You see a portion of it. We're looking at a desktop.
If you can grab and drag it up, maybe.
Fill the screen on it.
Yeah. There we go. Can you see that? That's right side up now. So you can see the photograph?
No, we're looking at.
No.
We're looking at
I'm looking
screen.
at an aerial photograph. Okay.
We're looking at your screen one.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go.
How's that? Okay.
Here we go.
So this is just a few shots, and I'm sure you've driven by, this a whole bunch of times, and but this is the CHIPS that exists. You can see Silas Deane Highway over here. This is some of the parking. This is the entranceway of the CHIPS. As I scroll down, you'll see a shot looking south on Silas Deane Highway. Another shot at CHIPS, but this is in the area, in this photograph is where the outdoor pet dining would go. The existing sidewalk is here, and that's going to stay there. So you're still going to have this wide planting strip between the commercial use and Silas Deane Highway, but you'll have that outdoor patio area coming up, not all the way to the sidewalk. It'll be, Thomas and or John can certainly help me with how many feet distance it'll be. But that's another photograph of the CHIPS. Part of the reason of these photographs is to show the character of the neighborhood. The Denny's is across the street. You've got Hartford Health, People's Bank, soon to be M&T Bank. More of the neighborhood. And another shot right across the street at the CHIPS, you'll see the shopping center behind it that this property, that this restaurant falls on. And so those are just some ideas, just to give you an example of the character of the neighborhood. We don't believe, since the CHIPS is already there, that an outdoor patio area is really going to disrupt or change the character of the neighborhood. This was an aerial photograph taken that, here's the CHIPS restaurant here. Silas Deane, and the parking is an example. There's a lot of parking in this shopping center. In the shopping center, you have a liquor store that doesn't require a lot of parking. Japanese restaurant, a couple other restaurants. You've got a golf shop in here. So it's not the heavy-duty parking that you might have for a supermarket and so forth that's constantly having people come in and out. And it's a seasonal use, and it's a restaurant. It's not going to compete with some of the other businesses there. And actually, this, I don't know if you can see this now, but this is actually a live Bing map off the internet. Just recently, the parking lot was restriped, tarred and restriped, but you can see the nature of the parking area that this belongs to. We also obtained Mr. Wicko and Mr. Slow attended, what the heck?
The design review committee.
Design review, and we received approval for design review. Committee reviewed plans and details, well, anyways, approved your application. So we've gone through that step as well. We're also seeking liquor permit approval. I can tell you that this is printed off today from our Department of Consumer Protection. This is a liquor permit that is active until, well, it's got to be renewed every year. But so Mr. Shatopoulos is the permittee of CHIPS Wethersfield LLC. No live entertainment, service bar only, and that will continue with the patio, because this is only a service bar only wine and beer sales permit that we'd be seeking for the patio, because we have to actually go back to Liquor Commission and get approval for the patio as well. There's a separate application for that. And to give you an example how extensive the CHIPS liquor menu is, wrong one. Can you see the menu, fellas?
Yep.
Okay. So this is the CHIPS restaurant menu. I picked it up 3 weeks ago when I had lunch there. It's the same menu for all the restaurants. And it's a diner basically, but we specialize in their pancakes. But we got to scroll all the way down to find the liquor menu. And here it is, the extensive wine and beer menu. 4 beers and a few different types of wine. they find that some people just want a beer with lunch or a glass of wine with dinner, and that's the purpose. It's to serve their customers and keep them coming back, and so it's simply for the service of the customers. They don't make any money on this. It's just for the benefit of their patrons. So those were the exhibits I wanted to show you. I think we've covered the exhibits. I'd like to know if you have any questions for us.
Ryan, it's Joe. I have a few quick questions, if I could.
Absolutely.
Let's see. So what I was wondering is, does the proposed outdoor dining area extend into whatever the required front yard setback is in this zone?
Joe, yes, it does. We have provisions that allow patios and the like in the front yards, and we've approved several of them. Probably most recently for the Borden project in the front yard there as well. So
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. As long as it's in the regs. And then I was just curious, does the conversion of the grass to the impervious, will they still be in compliance for the overall site, whatever the maximum impervious coverage is? And just wanted to make sure that that grassed area wasn't the condition of the prior approval or anything like that.
right, no, that's been the landscape strip from before. However, the town engineer, as you saw in his memorandum, wants some provisions for infiltration, rain garden, and wants some additional detail on the pavement within the patio to see if some of those methods could assist with our MS4 stormwater requirements. So those are the suggested conditions that we would ask that you attach so that he can do that prior to the issuance of a building permit.
Okay, and I think they showed earlier in their presentation with the reduction inside spaces and the outside, it looked like maybe a net increase of 38. So do they have sufficient surplus parking? What is it, 1 per 4 or something required?
So the shopping center has a significant surplus based on our shopping center ratio. However, additionally, we have taken the position that outdoor patio seating that is seasonal, we don't throw in an additional factor for that on top of the standard requirements.
Okay. And I'm wondering, will the hours of operation of the patio be the same as inside? Any changes planned, for the hours of operation as a result of the patio? And also any increases in staff planned, or are you just going with what you've got?
Well, it's likely to be going with what we have. I mean, the whole restaurant industry has been turned upside down. But the plan is to stay with the same staff that they have. As far as the hours, no, that's one item we didn't discuss. I think the intent is that it's not going to be any earlier than, when they open up in the morning, and it's not going to be late into the night, because first of all, there's no nightlife there. It's not a bar. It's not.
Right. Seems like they close fairly early in the evening. Whenever I drive by, it doesn't seem like they're open very late.
No, they're not. They cater to lunch, breakfast and lunch.
Okay, all right, but that's what I've got, but thank you.
Peter, I have a few questions. Number one was, when you say seasonal seating, will the interior seating change when the exterior seating isn't used? In other words, when winter comes, will there be more seats added within the restaurant because the outer ones are not used? And then the other question I had was whether there'll be any added exterior lighting or possible sound system installed for the outdoor area?
That question's for me. There is no sound. There will be no sound system.
Okay.
As far as if it's winter time and they have the demand, yeah, they're going to move some of the chairs inside.
Okay. Any exterior lighting under the awnings or at the patio? If they stay open past dark?
Yes, if they're open past dark, but it's not going to be anything glaring out onto the road. It's going to be focused on the tables.
Okay.
There are a couple of gooseneck.
John might be better at handling that question.
Yeah, thank you. I can add that. There are lights. You can see them on the SD2, the rendering. There's two existing lights at the tower. We're proposed doing two or three comments behind the tree. It looks like it's two lights that's in the same pilaster. So it's no more than what's there. It just spreads the light down on the patio a little further. So we're not doing any.
There is one behind the tree, but it's not rendered. It's not shaded.
Yeah.
We'll zoom in. Other question was the sequence of entry to the patio seating. I take it you'll come in, deal with the maitre d', and then come out through the new swing door to the patio. Right. Okay. So everything will be ADA compliant and so forth.
Yes,
So
yes.
No, that's good.
Thank you.
Actually, I had a question on the operations as well. So just to make sure I understood that correctly, there's the two swing doors on the north and south side of the patio. Are people coming in and seeing a host or a hostess outside? Are they going, or they're going inside and then being seated outside? Is it that second option?
Yeah, those doors are for egress. The fire marshal reviewed and approved the plan. The entrance is still through the vestibule, and you see the hostess at the reception counter. Then they walk through the door there. That's right to the right of their desk. So the idea is to contain the people, in the patio and have them come through the building as they normally would.
One more question. Sorry, real quick. The awnings, the existing awnings are remaining in place, or is there a larger awning going over maybe the fenced-in portion?
Right. You can see on SD1 there is an existing awning at the tower that stays. The other awnings that are shallow are going to be replaced with the retractable, which is that shaded area. And there's no structure at all. They're a swing arm from the building. So when they are in use, and they're only going to be out when patrons are in the patio. So those three areas, those three windows, they will be replaced, but with the swing arm style.
And regardless of your permeable, impermeable surface that you're having as your patio, the controlling case is with that awning closed all the way out to the proposed rock wall?
Yeah, just short of it, but yeah, it doesn't extend beyond.
Well, I mean, like for your MS4 calculations, like if you're trying to figure out a low impact of
it's one and the same, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, one and the same.
And it's going to be the same impervious cover underneath the open patio section, the uncovered
Correct.
section. Okay.
Yeah, concrete pavers, yes.
I just wanted to ask the question about the sidewalk. You've rerouted, it looks like you've rerouted traffic. People would be on the side parking lot. Today, they go in front of the building, right? There's a sidewalk in front of the building, and they would walk along that sidewalk and then enter the side door. So what you're doing is you're rerouting people to the public sidewalk because now you have added this area, correct?
That's right, yes.
And this is to you, Peter, I mean, is there any concern with rerouting traffic through that sidewalk? I don't know, it just seemed a little bit funny to me, and I was wondering if you guys looked at it and if you had any concerns with that.
Quite frankly, I don't think that sidewalk gets much use anyway. It leads to the northern portion of the parking lot, and I don't typically see people parking over there, walking down the sidewalk to come into the front door. They tend to park, on the south side of the building or behind the building and come in the main entrance. Additionally, there is a public sidewalk in front of the complex as well, as you noted. So, and the sidewalks on the site plan are connecting to the public sidewalk. So I think, given all of those factors, I'm not concerned with the loss of that particular stretch of sidewalk.
Yeah, I think I'd be more concerned if the handicap spots were on the north side of the building.
Right.
Sure.
Peter, in the same regard, is there an issue with the snow shelf on the sidewalks? Will the patio be encroaching so close to the sidewalks that they might have trouble moving that snow?
Fortunately, the green strip between the sidewalk and the curb line is very generous, so there's lots of room there to put the snow. So I think that should, they'll just have to modify their snow removal practices to keep that in mind.
Fair enough. Any other questions from the commission before I open it up for the public?
Yes, I have one question. This is Commissioner Deane calling. As I hear the modifications that involve swinging doors to egress out to this new patio area, it seems like that is an opportunity for insects to enter into the main area of the restaurant, and I wonder if any health official or anyone has taken a look at the plans and raised any questions or issues regarding insect control or issues dealing with insects and sanitation that may be affected by this proposed new service. I'd open it up to both Peter and also the applicant to respond.
Tom, I did not get any comments from the health district. I can't speak for the applicants as to whether they've conferred with the health district yet, but I have not received any comments.
John or Thomas, do you want to take a crack at that?
We're not aware of any comments either, but there are several methods, air curtain and retractable screens that we've used at other restaurant locations that satisfy those health departments. So if it does come up, there are two opportunities to give them some solutions for that.
I would presume that this proposed modification to your restaurant as for the outside dining is being done or has been attempted with several of your other restaurants around the region. Have there been any issues, regarding public health, insect control, and like arising from those modifications?
No, there haven't been. Everything's been taken care of. There's no objections.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or questions from the commission? All right. Opening up to public comment. Let's see what we got here. I don't know if is Fernando, is that a member of the public for this? Or if anyone has any comments, if you just wanted to unmute and chime in. Maybe that's the easier method. We got Ruth, we got Angie, Antoine, Fernando, going once, going twice. All right. So with that, do I hear any other comments from the commission? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion to close the hearing, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
Excellent, seconded by Tom. So with that, maybe I'll take a crack at a positive referral, and then we can have a conversation going with that. I'll make a motion to approve application number 2090-21Z with the memos from the town of August 30th, 21. All those items 1 through, I want to say 6, did I have that right? Met to the satisfaction of the town. I don't remember there being a stipulation discussed. Yes, I got 1 through 6, yes. I don't remember any other stipulations that we might want to add on to that unless Anyone chimes in now?
Mr. Chairman, the only one I had in my comments was just a final landscaping plan be submitted for town approval as well.
Okay, so final landscaping plan, the memo from 8:30, items 1 through 6. All right, open for discussion.
I'll second the motion, Ryan. That was a motion, Ryan, right? I'll second.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll second.
I'll just comment that I think it's a very positive plan. I was out there this weekend. I walked around it. I think it'll be an enhancement to this establishment, of course. And, I think it's time for us to consider, more outdoor dining. I mean, I spent a lot of time in my job in Europe. As you know, in Europe, I mean, they're all about outdoor dining, right up to the roads, basically, in some of the cities. So I think it's a good proposal, and I'm in favor of it. We should proceed. My opinion.
I agree. I think this is definitely following the trend for a lot of other restaurants, and having it permanent would be a nice addition to this area. Well,
I want to thank all three gentlemen for being so thorough and so complete. It's very unusual for us to put something on the table this quickly with the detail that's been put on it for us. I'm grateful anyway. It expedites our evening, and we do volunteer on these boards and commissions, so thank you for being as complete as you are.
You.
all right. So with that, we do have a motion. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? Your application is approved.
Thank you very
Congratulations.
much, gentlemen.
Looking forward to some outdoor pancakes.
28 flavors.
Yeah,
Whatever let you down.
it is a little daunting, right? Paralysis by choice.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thanks, have a good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Oikel has joined us, so I think does that bring your capacity up to 9 now, I think?
Okay, thank you.
Brings us up
You're
to
here,
9.
Mr. Chairman.
We got you. What's going on, George?
Thank you.
We're up to 9. So that vote was 8, right? So with that, that was the only new business. Now moving on to other business. Item 4.1, pre-application review, preliminary informal review of a proposal for redevelopment of 1652 Berlin Turnpike. Do we have someone presenting on behalf?
Mr. Chairman, for the record, Peter Alter, representing the applicant.
Good to see you, sir.
How are you?
Good.
This is, as indicated in the call, a preliminary presentation to the commission so that we can get some initial feedback on the proposed redevelopment of this property at 1652 Berlin Turnpike. Mr. Anton Vo is, I think, with us this evening. He is the proposed tenant for this property, and if there are particular operational questions that I can't answer, he should be able to answer them. This property is zoned regional commercial. It consists of 0.42 acres. And if we go forward with an application after tonight's discussion, we would be applying for a special permit in accordance with your regulations. We did have the opportunity to review the January 5th, 2021 decision by this commission when it unanimously denied an application for a used car sales operation on this site, which was intended to include the outdoor display of cars for sale. There were a number of issues that commission members raised in unanimously denying that application. And we believe and hope that you'll find that what is proposed before you tonight addresses a lot of the concerns that the commission expressed when it was presented with that earlier application. Mr. Voll has retained Close, Jensen, and Miller to develop a site plan for the redevelopment of the site. And you'll see when we show you that in a moment that the green space is increasing, parking is limited, and the Berlin Turnpike frontage is significantly enhanced, in addition to which the building will be also addressed. Ed Diamond, an architect that the commission is familiar with, has also been retained to assist in the redevelopment of this property. Obviously, at least in my review of the last application, that applicant proposed no significant improvements to the site and really left the site in an unfortunate condition. The facility that is proposed will be operated in accordance with the Department of Motor Vehicles vehicle leasing license. To reassure the commission, that license does not permit the sale of vehicles as part of that operation. It is strictly for the rental of vehicles to the public. I asked Mr. Voll how many vehicles he expected to have on site, expecting a numerical answer, and his answer was, I thought, pretty insightful. His hope is that there are never any vehicles on the site, except for his 3 employees, because the vehicles, to be successful, have to be out on rentals with the public. He is willing to limit the number of vehicles that will be available for lease or rent on the site at any one time. We would propose a number in the range of 15 vehicles. There will be typically three employees on site, and we are proposing a total of 26 parking spaces. No repairs or maintenance of vehicles will be done at the site. Mr. Voll has made arrangements for another place where that kind of work can be done. The garage bays that are existing in the building will be used only to clean and prepare vehicles to go into service. Mr. Homeke raised the issue of the fact that when a used car lot is put in place, that it renders no tax benefit to the community, that those vehicles are not registered and not taxed. All of the vehicles that will be used from this site will be registered in the town of Wethersfield. They will be taxed in the town of Wethersfield and present a net positive benefit to the community in that regard. We believe that this use is distinctly different from a used car lot, and in fact other automotive uses. I would characterize this much more as a retail use than an automotive use, by the nature of the customers that will arrive, complete the rental process, and leave in the rented vehicle, as opposed to typical automotive activities where a lot of vehicles are parked for long periods of time. Only clean, well-maintained, late-model vehicles will be on the site, and they'll only be on the site when they're not out as a result of a rental. It is not a public garage. It's not a filling station. It doesn't have the repairs license that would be required for one of those. The nature of the building, it's about 1,205 square feet by my calculation. Part of it will be redone into a customer receiving area, a small office, a bathroom, and then the 2 bays to prepare cars to be rented. And obviously, as you see from the plans that we're going to show you, This applicant is committed to making a substantial investment in the improvement of the property and its appearance from the Berlin Turnpike and from Knott Street. So Peter, you chided me when we spoke this morning about not being able to run this program, and I was put to shame by the attorney in the prior one. He seemed to be very good at that.
Are you gonna prove me wrong? I'm gonna make you the co-host, or how do you wanna do this?
If you do that, I'll take a chance, and then when it doesn't work, I'll let you do it.
All righty, let me set you up here.
Thank you. I also have a young person here who can come and help me.
Okay. You've always gotta have a backup plan.
That's right.
You should be able to go if you wanna give it a shot.
Thank you.
The youth always get charged with the IT.
I've already messed it up. Help is on the way.
It's the secret now.
Good, Peter, you're gonna do better than that.
Oh, George, you have no idea how bad I am at this.
Well, no, not as bad as I am.
Here we go.
There you go, you're the best. Thank you. That was not me. This is what we propose the building will appear as once the redevelopment of the site is done. In terms of the reclamation of this property, this gives you an idea of the 0.42 acres that abuts the Berlin Turnpike, which is to the left of the property. The parking is, as you see, in two rows, one adjacent to the turnpike and one adjacent to the line of the building. You can just see the rooftop of the building in the upper portion of this aerial photograph. This is what it looked like in the last Google Streetscape photograph as it appears from the Berlin Turnpike. Not sure why Mr. Oikel didn't think that that was an appropriate appearance, but he indicated pretty strongly.
No, I didn't.
Mr. Oikel, I read the minutes from the January meeting. You didn't have too many kind words to say.
No, I didn't. But on this one, I think I have kinder words.
Thank you. This view is just from the side. The dumpsters are, as you see them, they're just set out into a parking space, not properly screened, and the building obviously is in significant disrepair. Kevin Johnson, our landscape architect, has taken the time to find ways to make the appearance of this site better. We've moved the dumpster over and we'll screen it with a proper enclosure to the north side of the building. We will have handicap accessible parking immediately adjacent to the building. The green space within the site will be increased by about 23%. There's another 1,000 square feet of green space that Kevin has been asked to add, and this plan reflects that. And then, assuming that we can get permission from the DOT, we're also proposing to reconstitute the area out by the Berlin Turnpike. That would be a significant increase. Right now, there's only about 1,600 square feet of green space out there. With Kevin's plan and with the islands that are being added to the parking lot, we're increasing to about 4,600 square feet from 1,600, which is obviously more than 100%, almost 180% increase in the amount of green space out front, trying to create some separation from the travelway of the Berlin Turnpike, and also to set this piece apart as a more attractive opportunity to be viewed from the Berlin Turnpike. So we went to a great deal more trouble than we typically would for a preliminary application before this commission, but we felt that we wanted to demonstrate to you that Mr. Vo has a commitment to this site to make it better and to get his automobile leasing and rental business up and running here, and to be a positive benefit to this part of the Berlin Turnpike. Certainly a big improvement from used car lot that last occupied it. We're happy to answer any questions, and obviously this is a preliminary presentation by us. It's not a full presentation. We have not completed with Close Jensen Miller or with Mr. Diamond, our architect, but we did want to show you that Mr. Vo is very committed to bringing this site online in a way that is more consistent with what the expectations of this commission typically are. So we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I have some, Mr. Chairman.
Have at it.
The only reason I was against previous ones was the quality of them, and you brought that up significantly here in the preliminary proposal. I see a white driveway look to the rear, to the North Street side. I don't know what that is on the north side of the building, but I'm sure you can explain what that is. But I'm glad to see the additional green area. Has the town engineer looked at this, Peter?
Not yet, since it's a preliminary application, he has not weighed in, but as you can see, I think he'll be very pleased that, the lot coverage in terms of the asphalt has been exchanged for a lot of this green space, which will statistically help him with his MS4 work. He does not get many opportunities to see properties converted back to green space, so I think he will be pleased, and we'll work out obviously all the drainage details with him at the appropriate time, but I do not normally get him involved at the pre-application level.
No, except I wanted to point out to the applicant here that that is a significant thing with the town engineer in this day and age. And what you just expressed, I think you're correct. It probably will go a long way, what I already see in a preliminary manner. But he's got to do all that detailed effort. And I would like to simply say, I've always thought, and this goes back, I've been on that commission for 40-something years, and on this commission. And I've seen things come and go, and I saw a possible proposal a number of years ago, which combined a couple of other parts or other sites adjoining this. And that would be nice to have, but I think this proposal goes a long way to making this site and possibly this area enhanced at this end of the Silas Deane, the Silas Deane, I'm all right, the Berlin Turnpike, and we needed that, and I think this could go a long way in that direction. I don't have too many things to say except, what I already have, and we look forward to it. I think the rendering it goes a long way to improving a derelict building, and I don't know what more we can do. Peter, have you thought of anything more that we really might need to expand it or do something else with the site?
No, I think the renovation of the building is an important component to the redevelopment of the property, and you can see that's a nice clean look to the building and the treatments that they're proposing. So they're going to screen the dumpsters. They're going to add looks like significant landscaping. Looks like some trees as well. Reduce the pavement coverage. So it's ticking off a lot of the the buttons that we would normally be asking for. But as I say, we'll be happy to work with the applicant as this project gets fine-tuned.
Mr. Chairman, this is Peter Lambruni. I just want to follow up on George's question. Maybe Peter, Alder, you could comment. I went to this site again, and that north side curved driveway, I don't know what it is. I think it comes sort of from Knott Street. Is it a right-of-way that's on this property? Can it be removed? It looks like it just leads to that abandoned
Hotel.
motel in the back,
Motel,
right? So,
This is the one you're talking about right here.
yeah, is it something that needs to stay, or can that be turned into green space?
I don't know, we would have to inquire, I don't know what the relationship between the motel property to the rear and this property is. I have not looked at that title, but I can, to figure out whether it's possible to eliminate that in some way.
Yeah, I think that would be very important. I echo everything that George said. This would be a great improvement to this corner property. The only concern I had, if that is a right-of-way and is maintaining people going in and out of that back area, boy, that would be difficult, not only for the business, but potentially a safety issue, the way that corner is set up. So Peter, I really think you got to look at that carefully and see if we could abandon that and just forego that problem in the future.
We'll take a look at the title and see if they have any rights. I don't know.
Okay.
We may not be able to address it if there are legal rights to it, so.
Peter, I think you'll find there's a common ownership situation there with the hotel and the building, the former gift shop and this property. So there might be possibilities of working that out.
Okay.
So in that same vein, I was curious about the overall traffic pattern that would be possibly suggested here. So the south side of the property, right now, there's an understanding that there's no vehicles passing to the south and using that curb cut in order to access the Berlin Turnpike, obviously going to the north side, going to the north. But in this case, like, if there is an opportunity for that curb cut to be used so that you're not taking the Berlin Turnpike to the north right at that corner.
Right here?
Yeah, so you're right at the corner, you're right at that light. That's going to be a difficult maneuver, especially if somebody's trying to, and I can imagine this happen, trying to hop across the lanes in order to get to the south side, the south end of the Berlin Turnpike. So I was curious. I don't quite remember why. It doesn't sound like there was a very solid agreement between this property and the former gift shop there. But if there is one, I think it would make this traffic pattern overall a little bit safer for the people trying to exit the parking lot a little bit further to the south.
Would it be entry only?
Entry only where? I'm saying that if you're able to exit towards the south of the property,
Over here.
that would be a safer maneuver for traffic. So if there's any kind of communication between these properties, that would make a lot of sense. Otherwise, people are going to have to take Knott Street because you're right at the light. You're north of the stop bar when you're at that curb cut that's on the north side. Like you're north of the stop bar for the Berlin Turnpike, so there's no way to get on during certain phases of that signal. So you just got to be a little, so if we can just sort of iron out those details, that'd be good. I had one, I think that was the only one I had. You do only have one parking space for the employees, and you mentioned 3, so I would probably add at least one more. I don't know if you're only having one employee at a time, or
My understanding is that there could be as many as 3 at one time.
yeah. So I don't know if we want to maybe amend that so that you're actually showing 3 vehicles for employees. The green space that's in the front, looks great, but, you know, you're gonna have to coordinate with the DOT, and, you know, let's just assume the DOT is gonna do what the DOT does and not approve it because it could limit the use in the future. It could, you know, there's any number of reasons why the DOT could say no to that. Is that green space required for anything? Would there be like a waiver required if you can't get it? So if there was like a option B showing here's what we would do if the DOT does not approve, because then we don't have to, you know, question it and be like.
I would say at the moment, we haven't investigated option B. Right now, the site is basically 100% paved. So that even the addition of the increase in green space that we propose within our site makes it less non-conforming than it is right now. Brings it closer to conformance for
Right,
green
okay.
space.
So we're getting into we're inching towards that, but so we
are, Kevin Johnson has added islands, those are on our property and those can be established, whether or not the DOT is cooperative. I will say I've had a little luck with the DOT lately with people being reasonable, so.
You're lucky.
No, I think my only reasoning for that question is I wouldn't want to hinge any of our design decisions or any of our approvals on the department going one way or another. So yeah, that's all I mean.
And as you know, they won't act until you act, so.
Right. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a quick question if I could.
Sure.
Attorney Alter, just to make sure I understand it, so it sounds like the owner or operator of the business would own all of the vehicles, and I guess my question is, would they be really short-term rentals? In other words, you know, like expected a weekend rental, or could it be a one-day rental? Do you know how that might go?
I think that there are all nature of rental opportunities in a situation like this. If I were going to make an analogy, Attorney Hammer, I would talk about something like enterprise, where you can rent a car for a particular use. For example, you could rent a van because you need a van for a weekend, or you could rent a car for a much longer term because your car was in an accident and isn't available for 30 days or longer now because of supply chain problems. So I think and Mr. Vogt can certainly speak up if I'm not saying this correctly, but his intention would be to offer all nature of automobile leases to his customers, so that for people who need a car for a day, it's available. For people who are visiting and can't get a car at an airport, which seems to be something that's going on right now, they're available, or for longer term rentals, they would be available.
So it sounds like the only time the customer would be on the site, you know, it's not like they're going there to pick out the car. They've probably reserved it, or basically just go in, fill out the paperwork, and come back and leave it off type thing?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Will the patrons be, say you'll rent a car for a day to go to Manhattan, will I have the ability to leave my car on the site?
Yes, I have the typical drop arrangement where you bring the car back, you park it, and you can drop the keys through security portals so that the keys are returned and the car is secure.
And cars will never be sold from this site, correct?
And not be under the licensing that exists. You're simply not permitted to sell cars from this site.
Thank you.
Peter, in the original site that exists today, I know that there was removal of some, like the concrete pad for where the gas pump might have been, and some other materials. Do we know if that was done properly. I mean, I don't want to throw blame on them or anything, but like my concern is any contaminated material that you might find or any of your, disposals that you're going to need to have that's going to then fall on you because maybe the prior applicant just sort of patched over on top of something that should have been removed or.
So a good question that I don't know the answer to at the moment, but we can inquire as to whether or not there is any environmental reporting that's been done.
So if there's any testing that needs to be done or anything,
Right.
especially if you're going to hide that material out and put in some green space, what do you do with that? You got to dispose of it somehow. Like it's going to be some sensitive material.
When you remove the existing oil tank and gas tank according to the plan, you're gonna have to, probably have it reviewed for contamination and so forth.
It should have properly been done when the tanks were pulled and a report filed with your fire marshal at the very least.
Yeah, these plans don't propose removing. It's the oil tank and stuff that's right next to the building itself. Not the underground. So
Yeah.
And those are of a different character, so.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, George Reichel. I just want to further comment on my other fellow commissioners. Do we need all the spaces you show there because you have customers coming in and leaving their cars for various periods of time while they rent? And you may have that many if you're successful. I hope you do. But also, I don't think we need 3 exits, or one to the south particularly have to be closed off as far as I'm concerned. So keep that in mind as far as any application.
I think one of the messages I've got tonight is that I need to make sure that I have the traffic well in hand and understood and that it can function safely. I also have to get more information on the relationship among the 3 parcels, that the gift shop is on a parcel, the motel is on a parcel, and then this is on a parcel. And I just don't know what the relationship is in terms of access easements and the like. So
No, and what you're looking for here was, we don't feel about this one like, at least I don't, like I did the previous one 6 months ago. So I think that's a positive step for you, and you're going to go into all the rest of the detail to present anything to us. And, we're just trying to give you a few clues and cues as to what you should be looking at, and I'm sure your professional staff that get into a full design of this thing will come up with those suggestions also.
Yep, appreciate it.
Chairman, I have another quick question. The fence in the back goes along the whole property in the back. It's not in very bad shape, but there's some areas that have wear and tear. You guys plan on doing anything with that fence, just to repair it or maybe change it?
Mr. Libri, I don't know who owns that fence, so I have to figure that out first. And if it's on this property, we can certainly remedy any shortcomings that fence has. Mm-hmm. It does provide a certain amount of privacy, and I'll need to talk to Kevin Johnson about what he thinks about that. So
Okay.
I'll have to find out, first of all, whose fence it is.
Yeah, like I said, Peter, it's not really that bad. There's just some areas that I think could use some work.
Yep.
It's not a complete removal, in my opinion, but maybe an upgrade in some areas.
Pretty off there, Tony Homeke. I think you're getting pretty good with that pointer there, and you remind me of John Madden in the old days of the NFL trying to circle the football field.
I'm not ready for that yet. I'm not ready for prime time, for sure.
You come the wrong way anyway. The reason why I was against it is because inventory is not taxable in the past. the proposals just didn't work, and it's contrary to the master plan of conservation and development. So you've overcome those hurdles, at least to me tonight. This building's only paid an average of $3,000 to $5,000 a year in property tax because it's been so run down. You're bringing a proposal that is significantly different with potential of doubling, if not tripling, the real estate tax per year. And if there's 25 cars at a mill rate of 40 mils, I'm estimating the tax on these cars, if they are registered to the town of Wethersfield, would yield anywhere from around $15,000. So that is a positive. And this is a gateway to the community, either exiting on or coming into Knott Street. So it's come a long way to convince me. I think it's a positive presentation you've given tonight. I'm interested to see what the construction estimate cost might be, and if there's much business personal property inside, be it computers or equipment or whatever else might be enhanced on the site. But I endorse this proposal. I think you've come a long way.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with that. I think this is a significant improvement and a relief.
Well, we will certainly be back with hopefully more information for you based on your comments, and we look forward to bringing this proposal forward. Certainly that corner of Knott Street could benefit from this redevelopment. So,
Absolutely. All right. Thank you. If there's any
Thank you
other
very much.
comments,
Peter, I'm going to give you the control back if I'm.
Okay, I'm going to un-co-host you. There we go.
I want to thank you for your time tonight. It's very helpful, and a lot of commissions don't take the chance to do this kind of informal hearing, and I think it goes a long way towards getting a better project. So I thank you for that.
absolutely. Thank you very much, Attorney Elter.
Thank you. Good night.
Night. Moving on to item 4.2, discussion SB 1201, Act concerning responsible and equitable regulation of adult use cannabis.
Yes, good evening, Commissioners. Peter Gillespie here. We have not yet had a conversation about this topic. As you are all likely aware, the state of Connecticut now has opened up for recreational marijuana, cannabis use. They've adopted a specific public act, which is referred to as SB 1201. The title is an act concerning responsible and equitable regulation of adult use cannabis. The act gives the community the opportunity to regulate this use. It's actually 9 different uses. There's a whole industry behind adult use cannabis and a number of different business operations that could in fact open up in Connecticut communities. So the statute does allow us to regulate the use. I would compare it to the authority we have for regulating various liquor control permits. We can establish separation distances to specific uses if we'd like, similar to what we did for the medical marijuana regulations. We can adopt, or should I say the town council can adopt ordinances if they would like. So we could take a zoning regulation approach, we could take a town ordinance approach. So the door is pretty wide open to how we want to go forward. Just to refresh your memory, a couple of years back, we did adopt medical marijuana regulations. So we still have those in place. That could be a model that we could follow if we wanted to further regulate this new use. But as I said at the beginning, we have not yet had a conversation about this subject as a commission or as a community. So you guys are part of that, but I think potentially we need to have a broader conversation because there is an opportunity for the town council to weigh in if they wanted to adopt an ordinance, and I really have not started that conversation with them yet. Just a couple of things to point out to you. I did a quick survey today of other Connecticut municipalities and what they have been doing as it relates to the regulation of this this new land use. 8 communities have actually already determined that they do not want this use in their communities. I'll give you a quick list: Enfield, Milford, Greenwich, Newtown, Prospect, Avon, Southington, and Waterbury. Waterbury. Yeah, I may have to check that, but I'm looking at my notes, and Waterbury has gone on the record against it, which I was very surprised to see. So I'll just have to check that one. 5 communities have established moratoriums so that they can study the issue and then come back with a specific approach at a later date. Those communities are Ridgefield, Danbury, Thomaston, Southbury, and Wilton. 2 communities have adopted regulations that permit the use. Those 2 communities are Middletown and Newington. Newington actually approved allowing a medical marijuana dispensary to convert over to what they call a hybrid, which would allow recreational and medical marijuana.
Is that a working location for that use as of September?
It's a working location.
It exists now.
Just for medical marijuana. The state has not approved any, has not established the rules, nor have they approved any recreational locations yet. That probably won't happen until at some point next year.
Oh, okay. I just read what you sent us, that's all on that.
How does that work now that it's, next year when it becomes fully legal? Is there such thing as a medical marijuana dispensary, or are they just marijuana dispensaries now? Like, why the hybrid? I guess I'm curious.
Yeah, I don't know what the logic was that, but they specifically have a hybrid definition in the new statutes, which is it's actually a fast track. It allows those folks, I think there are 14 medical marijuana dispensaries in the state. It gives them basically the inside track for a faster permitting process if they go to hybrid, because they've got a track record and they've been regulated already. And so I think that's part of the theory. So
yeah, it sounds like they're just a marijuana dispensary. It's just that they're calling themselves a hybrid because it's just faster for them to switch over into that. Okay.
As I said, yep. Go ahead, Dave. Yep.
The one in Milton is I believe is within an office building. How could that become a retail establishment?
No, it's actually on the Berlin Turnpike, and it's in that shopping plaza where there's there might also be a walk-in medical clinic, if you know the location. It's around the corner of, where the
They're across from 175.
I think it might be. Well, I don't know if it's that far down, 287. So it's right almost on the town line. So
Yeah.
And then there are a couple of communities that are presently proposing some new regulations, and I think that's Clinton and Westport. So it's all over the place in terms of what other towns are presently doing. So I wanted to at least start the conversation with you guys to see if there's any specifics that you guys are kind of leaning to. My professional suggestion to you guys is that we probably should at least initiate a moratorium so that for at least that period of time we are protected, and at a point down the road we can come back with a more educated position on that and or a new regulation. But I think this is a topic that probably requires a broader community conversation. As I mentioned at the beginning, I think the council should be at the table, the police department, because this is also going to fall on them to a certain extent, and maybe some of the other community organizations, to get a sense of where the broader community is before you guys just have a public hearing. So it might be helpful if we were a little more proactive. before we came back. But I think getting a moratorium in place for a period of time, maybe 9 months or something along those lines, at least gives us that opportunity to, see how everything settles out, see what other communities are doing, and then maybe come back with a more educated position after getting some community input.
Yeah, Peter, I agree with that because I'll send you a study I read that the auto insurance rates go up in all the states in which marijuana has been legalized. And because of, how can I say, fender benders due to confusion of drivers. But I think we should put a moratorium in for a period of time until we see where the insurance companies are going and, how the towns are being addressed that are selling the marijuana through recreational. Because I think there's a lot of factors that are going to come up, maybe not in the first year, but in the second and third year, that will maybe affecting the towns that have these locations.
I agree with the watch and see and then act approach that you're suggesting. But I have a couple of questions just out of curiosity. Maybe you could help me understand. I looked through these regulations quickly. Maybe I missed it. But, Peter, I live next to a farm. So is growing marijuana then going to be allowed as part of these regulations? And could the farm next door start growing marijuana? I'm just curious.
Peter isn't gonna do any of that.
So there is a cultivator permit. Typically, those cultivators are indoor growers. I don't think it's financially effective to grow this particular product outside, although I can't say that I'm an expert on that. But these are typically indoor, highly controlled environments to maximize the yield of the plant in a controlled setting. So it would be more likely an industrial type of indoor operation than something on the that you would find outside on a farm, for example.
Good. That's great to hear that. There was also something in these regulations about a referendum.
Yes.
Obviously, locally, we can prohibit. That's allowed in these regulations. But
Yes.
a referendum, the prohibition could be lifted? Is that what that was about?
I don't know if there is a referendum provision. There's a certain number of signatures required to bring it to a community referendum. I have not. I think one of the communities, there was a petition circulating for a referendum. I'm not sure how many. I'm not sure what that threshold is. I don't know if it can overrule if you were to adopt a regulation, or whether it's just to get a public consensus. I haven't really delved into all of the minutia of the act yet, but there definitely is a referendum provision that the residents could petition to have a vote on the particular subject matter. So,
Peter, I think the whole problem is sort of what Peter is suggesting to us, that he really needs to dig in a little bit more. There's a lot to that material that we got, and a lot of people got to get involved in this town, not just our commission. And by the way, while I'm talking, I'm so glad to see my old colleague, Peter Liambruni, back on the commission. Is that correct, Peter? Are you on here, or are you just a citizen tonight?
No, this is my first meeting after, almost a 20-year hiatus. I am back.
Well, I've always appreciated you. We're good old buddies, and I'm glad to see you here.
Thank you.
You're going to contribute greatly.
I agree with that, George, and this is one that I went to high school with Peter and Dave Drake. So the class of 73 is taking over, so be careful.
Yeah, just don't throw us old timers out the door, that's all.
Is that 1973?
That's it.
Well done. Good contribution right there.
How's your wine coming this year, okay?
Actually, it's a good year, yeah. Yeah, the grapes
Oh,
are,
really?
they're a little bit difficult because of all the rain, but.
It's a wet year, yeah.
So, in regards to a moratorium, I suppose it's kind of a moot point with a moratorium. It just means that we're not going to hear any applications for the next 6-9 months, whatever we decide it's going to be. It's not like you can actually construct anything, or not like you can have anything open until, what's it, May of next year, something?
I'm not sure the precise date. I've read different things on it, but, I read at one point it was early next year, then mid next year, and then by the end of the year. So I'm not quite certain. I think I think it's called the Equity Council has to establish some standards for the permit process and things like that, and then wait 30 days before they receive the first set of applicants. But and as I didn't get into all the details, but there is a social equity component. I think they've identified 35 census tracts throughout the state where they're going to make significant efforts to locate these facilities to provide some offsets to those impacted communities. We are not one of those. However, Hartford is right at some of the census tracts right at the city line are factored into that. So just something I did not mention there, and there will be a lottery also for the licensing as well. I'm not sure how that's all going to work either, but there's a lot to this whole process as they're rolling this out.
Yeah, typically that's from what I've read, that lottery and the way, and I'm forgetting how they termed it, but something about like somebody who's in the neighborhood is given the opportunity to have their business in their own neighborhood, as opposed to a developer coming from outside and coming into Hartford or something. They would want to give at least an equal or maybe like additional opportunity for somebody who's there already to have that opportunity for development.
This is Rich. The first round of lottery applicants are for the social equity applicants.
That's right.
People who are from the census tracts or otherwise qualified based on not having above 300% of the statewide average income and so forth. And it can be a kind of a money operation as long as the social equity investors have at least 65% of the ownership interest in the entity. And they're not necessarily limited to being in those census tracts. It's just people who grew up or spent 9 of the first 18 years of their life or 5 of the last 10 years in those census tracts kind of get a leg up, and the first round of licenses will be issued by lottery to people who fall into those categories. And to the extent there are more applicants than there are licenses, they would go into the pool for the other 50% of the licenses, which would also be by lottery. And as of earlier this month or toward the end of last week, I think they were talking about May or June of next year as the likely date by which the first provisional licenses would be issued.
Peter, do you have a moratorium recommendation, motion for us tonight that would be accurate?
You probably don't need to do that tonight. I would just like a takeaway if you want me to pursue that. In order to have the moratorium, we still have to have a public hearing to put that in place. So if you, if there's a consensus tonight that you want to go in that direction, I would, behind the scenes, get that in motion, get the referral out to CROG and schedule the hearing as quickly as we legally can to get that in front of you and to get that voted on and get that in place. I would think that probably at least 9 months, would be a reasonable. That should give us time to see what other communities are doing and to further, research the subject and then also have, some community engagement. And we need to probably just talk about that, whether that would be, under the Planning and Zoning Commission, whether that would be a town council, whether it would be just kind of a generic community meeting to solicit input. But we could certainly figure that out once the moratorium is in place.
Peter, will we be going after all of the 9 licenses locations? I mean, reading through this, there's the nine licensing types, and then there's another clause in here that the town will get 3% of the taxation for some use. And will we have a town lawyer look into this? Because is the 3% coming from the state being allocated to in a certain way? I mean, this is all, I know it's all like starting, but I'm just wondering, will someone within the town actually dissect this for us to review, and so we know what we have to go after?
Yep. So we definitely would consult with the town council and understand all the various options. As I mentioned at the beginning, there are a bunch of different license types. There are technically 9. However, a couple of them we have no ability to regulate. One of them is basically a person who will deliver cannabis to a specific location. So that's considered what they call a transporter. We cannot either prohibit or regulate those. That's regulated at the state level. So some of these things we will not be able to regulate. But to answer your question, yes, I think the moratorium would not just cover retail, but would all related licensing for a period of time.
Peter, would
I'd
you,
like to hear from the town council, Peter, on this thing, too, Art.
Yes.
As well as any motion that you bring forth.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of players that we need to hear from. The police department, as I said before, the youth community, youth services, social services, to see what, their thoughts on this are. So I think there's a lot of folks, I think, who need to be able to
I think we
weigh in.
should, I know we don't have a manager, but he's still around till the end of the month. I suggest that he have the council bring a meeting together of all appropriate people there in town bodies, and allow, not necessarily to have an open public hearing, but if that's what they want to do, fine. Something along that line.
Yeah, as I said at the beginning, some communities, it's not being left to the Planning and Zoning Commission, it's being left to the Board of Selectmen or the council or whatever the regulatory to adopt an ordinance, a separate ordinance above and beyond the zoning regulations. So I'm not saying that's the approach we should have, but I think we need to understand all of those options and all of that. And there's also provisions where the town can designate specific areas where you can and cannot smoke cannabis. So I mean, there's lots of different aspects of this that I think we need to talk about and figure out who's going to take charge of those.
And those other issues go beyond this commission's.
Yes.
Responsibility. All right.
Peter, I can't imagine in the 9 months that, we're going to have enough experience in Connecticut to really be good at this, at least understanding potential problems and how things may go awry. But, we have other states that have obviously done this and have done it for a while. You're going to be looking at some of those states too?
I typically do. When I do research on subjects, I always venture beyond the Connecticut boundaries, because in many states it's done better. And certainly we will look elsewhere. I don't know how far afield, but obviously I think we're the 19th state, maybe, something like that. So there's probably a lot of good lessons already learned out there, as you indicated, that we need to probably bring back to the table and discuss as well.
Yeah, Peter, I'll send you a couple of that. I know the insurance industry is all over the place with, information, but I have a couple of articles that I read that, with what happened in states. And the one thing that is in there, earlier they were talking about the growing of cannabis. In 2023, a household to be allowed to have 12 plants, but it must be grown within their homes in the statement, within the regulations. It can't be grown outside.
Okay.
Peter, I'm interested if you could forward or give us a list of the towns and what the status is, the ones that have Newington and Middletown.
Sure, I can put that together for you.
We could probably Google each town on our own instead of taking your time and seeing what the progress is as it goes along.
Okay.
That'd be helpful.
And it's a moving target. There were a bunch of communities that have hearings, scheduled later this month. So, and I'm sure the list, and I'm sure I've missed some communities based on the limited research that I did today. So, but certainly I'll be happy to share all of that.
I did watch a little of the debate at the Legislative Office Building, and if you have a weak moment and you want to spend a couple of weeks listening to the debate, Commissioner Edwards is right. There's a lot of statistics and a lot of opinions.
I think, my general opinion, I think 9 months feels like too long to me. Like if this, because marijuana is legal in May of 2022, I was just Googling it, like in Connecticut. So like if we don't have the information by then, and other towns are doing their thing, like I don't know, I feel like there's ample time within like say 6 months to do the same research that we can do in 9 months. Just seems like, okay, why are we waiting until after it's legal to make our decision on it? Because it's already legal in 21 other states. It's already legal, and other towns are already going to have, like, even in like 6 months, they're going to have like approved applications, and we're going to know what their town had to say about it. We're going to have that information.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my response to that is that if we figure out what it is we want to do sooner than 9 months, there's absolutely no reason why we have to sit there tapping our fingers for, however long it is until the end of the 9 months before we put out regulations. 6 months comes and goes, particularly when the whole process of amending the moratorium takes 2 months between having the public hearing and the mandatory referrals and so forth. So, I think 9 months is a safe amount of time, and as long as we're pursuing it diligently, sure, we can figure out what it is we'd like to do sooner than that. And get the regulations in place. It's just, like we did with the self-storage warehouses. I mean, we talked about it, we thought about it, we had other things going on, and had to keep coming back and extending it and giving us, enough breathing room the first time to get it done seems like a reasonable approach.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Peter, Tom Deane here. I just want to add my voice to endorse the concept of this moratorium. As per the information we received and the explanation that you've provided tonight, does appear to be a complex issue. The 9-month moratorium seems to be reasonable because yes. I just think that the 9-month moratorium just seems to be a reasonable and wise determination for us to make at this point in addressing the issues that are involved. Thanks very much.
Fair enough. Sounds like, if there's any additional discussion, I don't know.
I think I got my marching orders.
Outstanding. All right. Moving along, we got minutes from July 7th, 21. Any comments on those? George, you go first.
Make a motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Second. All right. Staff reports.
Just on top of, as a follow-up to the conversation about the minutes, we are still active. We lost our recording secretary, So we are actively looking for someone to prepare our minutes. So if anyone knows of someone who wants to make some money and take in all of these wonderful meetings, please send them my way. We'd be happy to talk to them about their interest in helping us. So other than that, I don't have a lot to report. You've got a couple of 4 or 5 applications coming up for your next meeting. So your next meeting agenda will be busy, and then we've got a couple coming in behind that. So you guys had a nice couple of meeting vacation off. So now we're going to get back to the town's business. So that's about it. Unless anyone has any questions about what's going on elsewhere in town or projects that are underway.
Hearing none, no.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. Peter, you haven't taken over the interim manager's position at all?
No
You
offense,
talk to yourself?
no offense to the manager, but thanks, but no thanks. How's that for an answer?
That's good, I like that one.
Peter, in that regard, with the town manager leaving, will it affect the EDIC meetings, your meetings, and the part-time position? I think that's in the budget. How's that progressing?
So actually, we have interviews tomorrow for the part-time economic development position. So we've finally got that scheduled, and hopefully, I think we've got some good candidates. So I think we'll hopefully be able to make a decision on that relatively quickly. It'll probably still take a couple of weeks to get somebody in the office, but that is moving along. Obviously, with the imminent the town manager leaving shortly, it's definitely going to have some impacts. We were starting to have a conversation about the potential use of the American Recovery Act funding, much of which it can be used for things like tourism and economic development and things like that. So unfortunately, I think that conversation is going to be pushed out, until we get either an interim or a permanent town manager replacement. So that will definitely have some impacts in that regard.
Peter, this housing grant, who's gonna handle that? Staff? You?
So under I think you're asking.
Money, right? And it can be also used for the plan of conservation development too, some of that information that you get out of the housing plan.
So we'll be putting an RFP or an RFQ together to retain somebody to help us with the plan of conservation and development, and that will be a component of that process. So yes, we will hire a consultant likely to help us with that.
Good.
Peter, probably some of us saw the article in the paper about the brewery that's contemplated for the Masonic building. I just want to check to see whether, basically confirm that has to come to us at some point before it opens, because I know that, the article talked about opening on October 1st, which I thought was aggressive, since it hasn't been approved yet. And, the kind of chatter on the Facebook was, questions about parking and is there going to be a public hearing and so forth. And I just wanted to kind of confirm that those things will occur in the natural course, based on when the owner files the application.
Yes, under the brewery and brew pub regulations that were adopted some time ago, a special permit is required for that use. So in answer to your question, yes, a public hearing will be held. All of the normal issues that you guys would consider will be factored into that. There has not been an application filed yet, so we're waiting for that application to be filed in order to schedule a hearing on that. And I did get probably half a dozen phone calls right after that story came out, wondering when planning and zoning had approved that brewery to open up there, and obviously I had to explain that that has not happened yet. So that article was obviously misleading. It implied some things that aren't necessarily in place yet. So yes, and parking, I've been advising the applicant about the timely concerns about parking in general in Old Wethersfield, and having a solution to the issue in terms of the number of patrons he hopes to have frequent, the brew pub or the brewery. So yes, just to confirm your question, it will have to still be reviewed by the commission.
Okay, thank you.
Peter, it also was on the news, and they mentioned a restaurant with it.
Well, part of his licensing for the requires a food service.
A certain level of food service, if I remember correctly.
Yes. So, and I don't quite have a handle on that necessarily myself, so I don't know how far he has to go with the provision of his own service, or whether it could be brought in, from another, nearby food service. So, yes, that will have to be clearly defined as part of his application.
Because the news broadcast showed the Masonic building and the repairs and, the outside of it. It was pretty interesting.
Yep, there's a lot of work to do there.
Peter, you suggested after I mentioned it to you that Mill Street parking at the apartments there, and I said over several years now, 2 or 3 at least, I mentioned to a couple of police officers on duty and even up at the police station that Mill Street parking at that apartment is very bad for that short piece of Mill Street between Maple and the Silas Deane Highway. And I have subsequently heard from a couple of other citizens who have traveled that all the time and feel the same way as I do, that's got to be corrected. And also I add in that we have a new bank going in, soon to be, I don't know when they'll be cutting the ribbons on it, the Chase Bank, but that comes out an opposite driveway to the south from the shopping center, and it will make Mill Street even more congested. And I think that somehow we've got to get the police or the town manager's office, whoever's in charge of these kind of matters, to do something about encouraging the police to do more enforcement in that area and get serious about it. I mean, warn the owner of those apartments that he has to keep his tenants off of that setback, which is what they're parking on. There are setbacks between the sidewalk and the street. It's town land and that kind of thing. And as far as I think that's the case there, but whatever it is, it makes that road a lot less useful. And it's a major connector road in the town, east-west, in the southern part of the town. What do we do about it, Peter? What are your recommendations?
So George, just to back up, you're referring to the multifamily development at the corner of Mill and Maple?
And Maple, right.
Okay, yep. And the situation seems to have been exacerbated over the last few years with people parking on the snow shelf and half on the sidewalk, half off the sidewalk. Yep, okay. Yeah, I think it has to be a multi-pronged approach with, police enforcement, because we do have an ordinance, I believe, on parking on the snow shelf. They might also be, violating the original, approvals for the property, so there may be a zoning component to it, and then obviously reaching out to the ownership to see if they can help might be another approach. So,
I know over the years, Peter, we haven't taken positions of this type except when we got into a plan of development or something, but I think this one is serious enough to deal with that. And somehow, I don't know who does it and how you do it, but maybe some of the other commissioners have some thoughts.
Either way, we're looking at specifics. Down the bottom of Hillsdale, across from DeSoto's, there's a CNG facility.
Yes.
UBC. That was all torn down. Is anything going to be graded there? Is the fence coming down? Any idea?
I think the town engineer had been working with the gas company on that. I can certainly ask him and find out.
One of the neighbors were asking me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hey, Peter, just going back to the Masonic building just for a minute. I mean, I've been looking at that building in disarray for, 10, 15, 20 years? I've lost track.
It's closer to 25 probably.
Oh, my God. We as a town, as a matter of fact, I was with George when they wanted to put an office building there, George, and the guy back there.
Right, oh yeah, we approved several times.
And the issue turned out to be parking.
Yeah,
We need a town solution to that building. We can't live with that in that condition. So I'm a little surprised that you said that, nothing has come forward yet. I would have expected, because it looks like they've started work or somebody's been in there. I don't know what they're doing.
Oh, that's the brewery. That's going to be the.
That's the brewery guy. He's doing some structural repairs that have to be done regardless of, who occupies the building. So the building department has let him, provide some power to the building and so that he can do some work and then fix some structural things. So I'm fully expecting an application from him, hopefully within a month, couple of weeks. So
I'm just saying that if this guy needs some guidance from the town, we got to be proactive.
yes,
To try to help solve this problem. I mean, inside, if he's got structural problems, that can be worked out. That's not an issue. The issue is going to be the site and what to do with the parking. So I hope the guy's being tuned into this. Anything you can do to kind of proactively get this guy thinking seriously about that would be helpful.
We've had him in meetings a couple times.
yeah, we have, and he's been with in front of the Economic Development Commission. So we're talking to, with him about some, potentially financial assistance. But ultimately, it's the parking situation. We have been in conversations with First Church about opening up some of their parking to the, larger community. We have not been able to get a specific agreement that this gentleman could take advantage of, but there are still efforts to do that. And actually, the town manager is striving to do that before his term wraps up at the end of September. So hopefully that will be in place, and when the brewery finally does come in for your approval. No matter what he does, he's not going to be able to get really much parking out of his own property. I think the most I've ever seen on previous proposals was maybe 5 or 6 parking spaces. So he really needs to look elsewhere, to satisfy his customer parking demand. And he is talking to the church as well. So I think that's got to be the biggest part of the solution.
All right, good.
All right, great.
So, any other staff conversation? We could open up. I don't think any public comments. Got a couple folks here. Speak now, forever hold your peace. Otherwise, we're moving on to correspondence. So we got a September 1st Department of Housing grant award.
Yes, we were in the second round of grant recipients for the affordable housing planning grant from the state. So we're happy to be able to receive that funding. As I said at the beginning, we are likely to use that funding to retain a consultant to help us with the broader plan of conservation and development update. Believe it or not, it's been almost 10 years since we went through that process. So we'll be soliciting consultants to do that. We'll have to discuss the timing because the deadline to complete an affordable housing plan is probably earlier than it's going to take for us to, rewrite the whole plan of conservation and development. But I think the state has some flexibility as long as we are working towards, our affordable housing planning process. there might be some flexibility to extend that deadline. So, we're happy to receive the funding, and we will be working on getting that started. I just submitted the paperwork to the state, so that is well underway.
Outstanding. Looks like we do have some pending applications coming up, driving school, tax office, a boat in a driveway, some re-subdivision, and what was that last one? Another re-subdivision. So, looks like we'll be busy in the next couple meetings, huh?
No rest for the weary.
No, the rest is over at least. All right, with that, do I hear any motions to adjourn?
Yeah, I'll move to adjourn.
All right,
Second.
and we got a second from George. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your patience with me. This is my first time. Luckily, it was an easy one.
Did a good job.
You did good. You did good.
No, I didn't have to do. You like it from your end, from your?
Yeah, worked out fine for me.
Not a problem. Happy to fill in for you. But you're up next.
Yeah, maybe we'll meet in person again someday.